another fairy tale. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a story that became well known in all kingdoms of men. It started as a whisper in the back of alehouses and progressed to the point of street corn and news barkers. No one knew if the story was true, but it slowly captured the imaginations of the common folk and loyalty alike, as it swept across the land through word of mouth and traveling caravans. Sometimes the smaller details would change, but the heart of the story always remained true. The account told of a princess of unparalleled beauty, Arachne, who was being held by a monstrous creature whose identity ranged from a fire-breathing dragon to a massive green troll who cannibalized any who came to save her. The only way she could be found was by listening to her melodic voice as she spent day and night singing a beautiful song while she waited in the highest tower, waiting for someone to rescue her. It concludes that only the bravest knight, prince, or warrior would stand a chance against the monster, but if one were able to slay the creature and free Arachne, they would be blessed not only with her hand in marriage, but also with the mountains of treasure in the castle dungeons. Stories like these weren't uncommon. They were known as fairy tales and were generally dismissed as children's entertainment, but not Arachne's. For some reason unknown, hers took on a life of its own, to the point where actual suitors began to gather in search for the elusive castle. Prince Pleasant became one such searcher after the boring political duties of a royal court became too much for him. Young and strong, and with no desire for governing, the prince wanted some excitement and adventure. Plus, slaying a dragon and rescuing a damsel in distress wouldn't look too bad on his resume. Pleasant searched for many months to no avail for any information that would help the quest, and had just about decided to give up when, at a tavern practically in the middle of nowhere, he met the nomad. Happenstance put them across from each other at the same table, and, much as it always did, the subject of Princess Arachne came up. Instead of one of the usual variations Pleasant usually heard, the nomad had a very unique and very specific version of the story. His was a first-hand account, rather than a regurgitation of what Pleasant had heard a million times before. He told of a kingdom of mist, some distance away, with a castle that would probably not have been seen had he and his group not heard the beautiful tones listing through the mist. It was a hypnotic melody that brought images of sirens calling sailors to their dooms, and in some regards, had very much the same effect as three men from his group could not help themselves but to push through the mist and investigate. The nomad, preferring the company of men, was able to resist the temptation, although he admitted to feeling the pull as well. The traveler waited for a day, but his companions never returned, and he made a hasty exit from the land of mist. This song still lingered in his head. The words were fairly innocuous as he described them, but there was something about the tones that got stuck inside his head and refused to leave, like an ailment that he had been unable to cure. That, and the fact that he had never seen his friends again. His story held everything accounted for in the fairy tale, and so much more. It was the many details that convinced the prince of its authenticity, and, for a fair amount of coin, the nomad made a map for Pleasant to follow. It came with, at no added price, a dire warning. Despite the lovely song and the innocent-seeming nature of the mist, there was something just wrong about the place. I felt an evil presence in my soul, were the man's exact words. Warnings like these usually accompanied such quests, and Pleasant wasn't about to be dissuaded by the old wife's ramblings of a scared old fool. The pure exhilaration and excitement of finally having a legitimate destination for his quest carried him for the next 3 weeks of rugged travel that traversed a number of landscapes, from dells to forests to swamps. When he finally reached his destination, the prince's initial reaction was one of anger. The nomad had lied to him. There was no castle, no mist or fog, no song. Just an empty field in the fading sunlight. Tired from the journey, and depressed at its finale, Pleasant decided to make camp for the night. He didn't know where to go from there anyways. Home, maybe? It was also anticlimactic. The young nobleman needed an evening before a fire to nurse his wounded pride and temper his wild expectations for what his life should be. It was a troubled sleep, full of self-doubt and deprecation. As one might expect, he was awakened by song. Just before dawn, as the smallest sliver of sunlight began peering over the horizon to greet the new day, it was a divine melody, sweet and gently carried by the wind directly to him, as if an angel were lying to his side, whispering heavenly promises into his ear. My heart, true love for my heart. Pleasant shot upright, instantly awake and aware. Princess. It had to be Princess Arachne. There was very little light yet, but what small amount there was did nothing to reveal his surroundings, as he was lost in a thick haze of fog, unable to see his hands in front of his face. The effect was disorienting. It made for a difficult time packing up his campsite, and even longer deliberating on whether or not to actually leave behind his horse and seek out the source of the song. In the end, he did in fact leave all of his belongings behind. He finally had what he had come searching for. Progress was slow at first, as even the rising sun did little to clear the way. Pleasant didn't remember seeing a body of water nearby, but he figured there must have been one somewhere close. That type of fog or mist just didn't come out of nowhere. He wasn't able to count on his eyes at all. All he had was the soft, lulling melody to lead him through the hazy unknown. The louder the song got, the more uneasy the prince began to feel. The unrelenting mist began to take on some unusual physical qualities as well. He began to feel the mist brushing against his skin, like soft, silken strands. The prince went on like this for some time, hands held out defensively, before finally seeing a large, hazy image looming before him. It was the castle. Pleasant had gone a mere inches away from the giant stone structure before he could make it out with any degree of clarity, and when he placed his hands on the cool wall, the singing stopped immediately. Instinctively, he pulled them away again, but with a small degree of difficulty. The wall was sticky for some reason. "Hello?" the prince called out, fearful he had lost his only trail of breadcrumbs, and hoping it didn't come out in his voice. "Is there anybody there?" It was deadly quiet for several long seconds before the angelic voice called back to him. "Is there someone there? Have you come to rescue me?" The prince's heart skipped a beat. It was her. It had to be. "Yes. Well, are you Princess Arachne?" "Please." Her voice seemed strained. "You need to come to the pipe." "The pipe?" "Yes," she insisted. "Follow the wall in the direction of my voice, until you can find a pipe that sticks out. We can talk there." Pleasant was confused, but he had come too far to start questioning the circumstances now. If she needed for him to find the pipe, he would find the pipe. The idea sounded easier than it actually was. The building was enormous and the acoustics in the fog were different. And after going a far distance, he started wondering if perhaps he had started off in the wrong direction to begin with. "Princess Arachne," he called out, needing some sense of bearings. "You're close," she called back, much louder this time. He was close. The pipe was just up ahead, poking out at a few inches at eye level. The small pipe, protruding from the smooth stone, was an unusual appendage at best. "I'm here," the prince spoke into the pipe, assuming that it was the purpose. The princess's voice returned, as if she was standing right before him. "Oh, thank the gods. Are you here to rescue me, good sir?" "Yes." Pleasant shook his head emphatically, even though she couldn't see him. "That is exactly why I'm here, princess. I have traveled a long way for that exact purpose." He could hear sobs coming through the pipe. Tears of joy? He could not imagine how frightened and tired the poor girl must have been. After all, it had been nearly a year since Pleasant had first come across the captivating tale of her plight, and was certain it had come some distance before reaching him. "Dear lady, please tell me how to enter, and I come immediately to your aid. Also, if you have any information about the vile beast that's imprisoned you, it might be beneficial for both of our endeavors." No reason to beat around the bush, he thought. Oh, she sounded slightly different. A beast. Well, I don't know. I've not seen the thing in a long time. I don't even know if it's still alive. I just can't get out of this room. That's why I'm here, so do not worry. More sobbing, and then, if you do, and I'm yours, if you'll have me, along with the treasure, I only worry that my beauty will not be enough for a man of your caliber. It was an unusual remark that Pleasant never pretended to fully understand. He was, however, as was usually the case, quite suave in responding. With a name like Arachne, I cannot imagine a beauty that would surpass you. The princess laughed at the other end of the pipe. You're a sweet man. Do you know the story of my name? Of course, Princess Arachne. That's why I'm here. Remember? Another chuckle. Not my story. The story of my name. Arachne. The prince remembered the name from childhood stories, but could not recall the details. I can't remember, Princess. Come inside, and I will tell it to you. There are no doors in the back wall, but if you walk 10 paces, you will find a wooden hatch. That's your way in, on the very top floor. It's quite large, so any stairwell you find should lead to me. I'll be able to hear and speak to you when you find one. Then, with strained desperation, please hurry. Those last 2 words were all the incentive the prince needed, and he set himself in motion, counting off the paces as he went. The wooden hatch was exactly where she said it was, but something about it struck him as odd. Not that the situation as a whole wasn't odd. The dirt had been swept away clean from the area. The hatch was pristine. Not that there was anything particularly ominous about that, but it just didn't sit right. He wasn't the only person to have come through the hatch in a long time. Perhaps a nomad's traveling companions? He didn't linger on the image for too long, though. His dear Arachne had waited long enough to be rescued. The wooden ladder led to a relatively clean, somewhat well-traveled tunnel, which, surprisingly, was lit at periodic distances with burning torches. Who had lit these torches? What sort of caretaker did this place have? He wasn't sure he wanted to know the answers. Perhaps it was some type of creature, still living within the walls. But what sort of monster kept the torches and maintained the premises? Generally, one would imagine monsters as creeps lurking in the shadows while skulking above their prey, bone-crushing or fire-breathing involved. Never did you think them for keepers, with dusters in hand. The tunnel was longer than he expected, nearly 200 paces, and he passed nearly a dozen torches before reaching a set of wooden double doors. They creaked with old age, but didn't persist in the list, landing on a massive hall, adorned with elaborate tapestries and ornate hand-carved furniture. Pleasant wasn't sure what he was expecting, but for some reason, this was not it. Rather than dungeon-like facilities one might imagine a hostage being held in, it looked like something a duke or duchess might live in. Even the massive fireplace that served as a centerpiece of the room. The only indication that suggested that this was the home of no one, and it was a strong one, were the inordinate number of spiders running about their webbing, covering almost every surface, combined with the elegant decorum. The effect was sufficiently unnerving. It wasn't that he was afraid of spiders per se, but, well, nobody likes spiders. Pleasant grabbed the closest torch from a wall hook and proceeded to burn his way through the webs. until he found what he was looking for at the end of a hallway on the far side of the room. There was an archway that led to a dark, circular staircase. Torch in hand, the prince headed up, his boots echoing before him. He could hear the princess again. "Is that you, my hero?" It sounded like she was right behind him, breathing over his neck. So odd were the acoustics that he couldn't help but look behind him. "Yes, my dear princess, it is I, Prince Pleasant of the kingdom of Far From Her. I'm on my way to your aid right now. I have just begun my ascent, and I do not know how far these stairs go, I'm afraid, but I will not dally." The princess laughed again, and there was a sound Pleasant knew he was already in love with. His was an ordained destiny, and when they finished telling his tale, it would decidedly end with, "Happily ever after." "I'm afraid you have a significant number to climb, but worry not. I will avail you with the tale I promised, the story of Arachne. I loved the Greeks and Roman myths when I was growing up. Didn't you?" The prince smiled. "I enjoyed the heroes of action, Hercules, Ulysses, and the like." "Well, isn't that just a perfectly man answer?" They were already building a rapport, and he hadn't even seen her yet. Theirs would be a love for the ages. I rather enjoyed the maidens and goddesses, and the stories of love and jealousy. But I guess you'd say that would be a typical woman's point of view, wouldn't you? "I would say no such thing, princess." She giggled again and then continued the story. "The tale of Arachne wasn't my favorite, but I've never been able to get it out of my mind. There are several variations, but, in my opinion, the Roman poet Ovid gave the account most accurately. As he told it, Arachne was a beautiful maiden of completely human blood who was unparalleled among her peers. In her weaving skills, she wove beautiful tapestries showing amazing lifelike scenes from the tales of the gods. She became so enamored with her own abilities that she began to brag. Arachne boasted of her ability so much that she claimed no one, not even the gods or goddesses, could do any better. The goddess Athena took offense at the prideful nature of the shepherd's daughter and came to her in the form of an old lady, warning her, "You can never be compared to the gods. Plead for forgiveness, and Athena might forgive you so." The foolish girl responded by saying, "I only speak the truth, and if Athena thinks otherwise, then let her come down and challenge me herself." Athena then removed her disguise and revealed herself, appearing in her shimmering glory, clad in a sparkling white tunic. The two began their weaving contest right away. Pleasant's break began to labor a bit, and the prince seemed to notice. "You can take a break if you want, my dear prince." "I'm fine. Please, continue your story." He didn't want to come across as weak, despite the fact that his legs were beginning to tire a bit. "Very well, but if you need to rest, I will think no less of you." "So, where were we?" "Oh, yes, the weavings. They both wove furiously and created master pictures of the gods. Athena represented the contest between mortals and gods, in which the gods punished the mortals for setting themselves as equals to the gods, while Arachne's weaving depicted ways the gods had misled and abused the mortals, particularly Zeus, tricking and seducing many women, as he had been known to do. When Athena saw the way Arachne had insulted the gods, and with work far greater than her own, she became enraged and ripped her own tapestry to shreds. The goddess then struck the maiden several times and chastised her to the point of utter depression. Arachne, so devastated by the experience, tried to hang herself and end her life, but Athena discovered this as well and placed a series of curses upon her. The initial curse saw to it that the maiden would never again be able to take her own life, nor would anyone else be able to either. Live on then, and yet hang, condemned one. But lest you are careless in the future, this condition is declared as punishment enough to you and your descendants. The last generation, the goddess declared. Her second punishment, then, was far worse than the first. With the poisonous juice from Hekate's herb and incantations, Athena made all of Arachne's hair fall out. With it, her nose and ears. Her head shrank to the smallest size, and her whole body became tiny. Arachne's slender fingers became stuck to her sides as spindly legs, while the rest of her became a belly, from which she still spins a thread as a spider weaves her ancient webs. Her descendants destined to 8 legs rather than 2. This showed how goddesses punished mortals who dared insult them. Arachne paused, allowing the finality of the story to stick. What then, dear prince, do you think of the tale? I don't know. It's a bit morose, don't you think? The princess laughed again, and Pleasant wondered if it was possible to fall in love with someone sight unseen. He was fairly certain it was, and he was. Morose? I suppose that is one way to look at it. There are several variations on the myth. Ovid's was just one of them. None of them ever get the legend quite right, however. The truth was a little stranger than that. The prince smiled. And just how would you know that? She's my namesake. I've had a lot of time to study while I've been waiting. Waiting? Waiting for what? There was a momentary pause before she answered. For you, of course. I've been waiting for you. Her voice was getting louder now. He had to be getting close, which was a good thing because his legs were on the verge of jelly. Pleasant prided himself on being a man's man, in excellent physical condition. But he had never been up this many stairs in his entire life combined. He made a mental note to find a set of stairs after the rescue and use them in his exercise routine. They made for one hell of a workout, and he finally conceded to a small rest and took a seat. The last thing he wanted to do was to make her wait any longer, but at the same time, he definitely didn't want to meet her and then be unable to sweep her off her feet. This was Pleasant's first attempts at a fairy tale, and though he knew the rescued princesses were always swept off their feet, he had no clue if this was literal expectations or metaphorical. With a short rest, he would be prepared for either. So, how did the story really go, Arachne? The prince leaned his torch against the wall, one step below where he sat, and tried to catch his breath. I'm glad you asked, Arachne said. Athena's poison did curse the maiden, and all of her offspring, to an existence as eternal 8-legged creatures. But she wasn't turned into tiny, unassuming insect. That was Athena's final insult. A lie, forever to be remembered. What was she then? Pleasant prompted. Something much more glorious than a bug to be squashed. A tiny spider dropped onto the prince's knee, causing him to reflexively swat it away, kicking the torch down the stairs in the process. He didn't figure the light would get too far away from him, but considering the alternative was to sit in pitch black with a bunch of little spiders, Pleasant hustled behind it rather quickly. It only went about 10 steps down, but what stopped it from going any further shocked him into immobility. There was a wall of solid white, from the staircase to the ceiling. It was a spider web, but not just a spider web. It was made of thousands of spiders, intricately linked together to create a nearly unimaginable barrier. How in the hell were the spiders able to build this? He only passed this point a few minutes ago. Are you okay? The princess asked. Pleasant didn't respond to the question, but it was enough to break his stasis. He grabbed the torch and promptly burned to the webbing, only to see another such wall form the next step down. After burning that, he found another, then another, then another, then another, then another. What had he walked into? Prince Pleasant? She asked again, for the first time in his life. Pleasant wasn't sure what to say. There's... there... there's... spiders, was all he could manage. Spiders! Her voice became odd again, like when he first asked her about the beast who had abducted her. You say there are spiders out there? Yes, my lady, there are thousands, millions even. They're everywhere and building these massive webs. How could she not know about the bugs? Oh my! She sounded herself again, and genuinely worried. How repulsive it must be. By all means, please hurry to my aid so that we may remove ourselves from the spider's web. The phrasing from the spider's web struck Pleasant as odd and put an uncomfortable feeling in his gut. It wasn't any stranger than the entire experience had been, up to that point at least. But it was enough for him to reconfirm his defensive need for caution. He would keep his free hand very close to his sword's hilt from here on out, heading back up again. He found that his initial hesitation of being close to the top was accurate. It was only another 10 steps beyond where he had rested. Another set of immense double doors sat at the top, no lock whatsoever. She must be trapped further in. The doors gave way to another massive hallway, lined on both sides with more beautifully hand-woven tapestries, the quality of which were incredible, even to his untrained eye. The striking detail they displayed would have rivaled a master painter, although they all bore similar scenes. A handsome young man scrubbing towards, but never quite reaching, a beautiful maiden. A tribute to the fallen, perhaps? There were many doors on both sides of the hall, and none appeared to even be closed, let alone locked shut. Princess? He called out. Where are you? I'm here. It came from the open doorway at the far end of the hall. Pleasant went very slowly, fully expecting some hideous beast to jump out at him at any moment. But all he saw were clear, well-appointed living quarters and social rooms. Finally reaching the end of the hall, the room he entered must have been the princess's bedroom, complete with a vanity and a four-poster bed. To the left of the bed was another doorway, and the doorway stood the princess. It was significantly darker in one room than in the others, so the fine details still remained a mystery. But from what Pleasant could tell, he could have no greater fortune. Prince Pleasant had been no stranger to the company of women. He had known barmaids, brothel girls, even princesses. But he had never known such beauty as the one that stood across from him. Someone that sculpted his every desire and breathed life into it. And now, she was waiting for him. So overwhelmed was he by her raven dark hair, dark eyes, and ruby lips, that he didn't wonder why she was there or why he had faced no opposition in finding her. He was simply enwrapped into a point of hazy hypnosis. Never before so awestruck. You're beautiful, was all he could stammer. She smiled, and it brought an ethereal light into the room, making him both flush and become elated at the same time. Had ever before a smile been so perfect, so inspiring? The smile alone made the labor of the journey all worthwhile. The princess opened her mouth as if to speak, and Pleasant found himself awash with excitement. Before she could utter a word, however, she was jerked back into the darkened room behind her, as if grabbed by some unseen hand. Her terrified cries erupted from the blackness. With his unsheathed sword in one hand and the torch in the other, Pleasant hurried over to the opposite doorway and stepped to the threshold. The princess was no longer making any noise. The room he stepped in was pitch black, save the meager illumination of his torch. The light barely made a dent because, apparently, the room was enormous. There was a stream of dripping water somewhere in the far end, and the echo acoustics alone gave a strong indication of its size. He was a few tentative paces into the center of the room, when the door he had entered slammed shut behind him, causing the prince to spin around. The door looked to be completely black for a split second before he got close enough with the light to cause a layer of tiny spiders to scurry away, revealing a white door that was locked tight and sticky. Pleasant turned back around to face the cavernous darkness, sword at the ready for whatever might leap from its midst. The room was fairly quiet, not silent however. Aside from the dripping water, there was a very distinct, scurrying noise, like a billion little legs brushing against the floor, walls, and ceiling all around him. And then there were the bigger ones. Still the same familiar brushing noise, just with more depth, like someone, or several someones, were sweeping the floor in various places. It was more than a little unsettling. "Princess?" he called out timidly to the scuttling ocean of shadow around him. Are you here?" There was no response for a moment, as several small spiders dropped down onto Pleasant's head, producing a convulsive motion as he swept them away. They continued to dive bomb until the prince waved a torch around the area. "Help me!" It was the princess. She sounded weak, possibly injured, but there was no way to tell where it came from. "Princess?" he called again, the fact that his nerves were getting the better of him apparent in his voice. "Please, I'm hurt." She was somewhere to his right, 20 or 30 paces if you were hearing her right. He held the torch out as far as he could see, but the oil was beginning to expire, causing his small circle of light to slowly shrink. This would not deter the prince, however, and he forged forward, burning web and spider alike as he went. A lifetime of seconds later, he found her, standing in the center of the room, smiling her radiant smile. "Princess, do you need... Come on, let's get out of here." She reached her arms out towards him. "You'll need to carry me, I'm afraid." Her voice was soft and sing-song, and could not have been more out of place given the circumstances. "I'm sorely afraid that I've been injured and won't be able to walk on my own." Everything about the moment felt wrong. Pleasant's primordial instincts were screaming at him to escape the situation, but she was right there. A vision of splendor greater than any goddess or prepubescent fantasy he might have had imagined. Everything he had ever desired of a mate. She was right there for the taking, asking to be taken. Despite the trepidation, Pleasant dropped his sword and torch and lunged forward to grab his future wife, throwing his arms around her. The moment his arms locked around her waist, he knew he had made a terrible mistake. In a matter of milliseconds, several crushing realizations came to the prince. The first of which was probably the worst. What he was hugging was not the waist of a slender maiden. Whatever he had his arms wrapped around was not at all human. It was the width of a tree trunk, immovable, with thick, rigid hairs, the size of his fingers covering it. Pleasant immediately threw himself back, or tried to at least. The thing was sticky. It took a real effort. He fell backwards onto the floor and grabbed his torch, holding it before him. Arachne, the beautiful princess, was no longer there. The black trunk he had been holding, which extended well into the darkness above, lifted itself from the ground and came back down next to him. It was a leg, jointed just above where his head had been, and angling inward towards the face. Its head alone was nearly the size of his stallion, with 8 evenly spaced eyes, as big as birds and black as night. They were in no way human eyes, but they did convey a deep intelligence. Pleasant was frozen with fear as the mutated creature's 2 massive fangs swayed above his head, dripping something onto his chest. Seemingly, he had found the monster. What have you done with the princess? You foul beast. He wanted to sound commanding, but given the position he was in, he was lucky it came out at all. Not that he fully expected the hideous thing to understand anyway. Apparently it did, however, because it replied, and its voice was like nothing the prince had ever heard or hoped to hear again. "Princess. What princess?" Although English, it was an inhuman sound nonetheless, ancient, like words that came from before time itself. "The only ones here are me and my children." "Arachne," Pleasant blurted out. Where's Arachne?" He interpreted the noise that came next as laughter, but only the kind heard from demons in the great abyss. A sickle rumbling cacophony that literally made his hair stand on end. "I'm right here, little fly. Don't you see me?" Pleasant's mind raced and told him, this can't be happening. But his heart knew better. I told you, I was changed to something much more glorious than a bug. Pleasant's heart darted for his sword, but Arachne was much quicker, her fangs slightly breaking the skin on his neck, although he would have easily eviscerated him had she wanted. The poison, some of Hecate's own, began working very quickly, placing the prince in a state of paralysis. That's good, sweet prince, Arachne rumbled. No need to get yourself all worked up. You will make a wonderful host for my babies. And eventually, their first meal. I consider it an honor if I were you. If you don't feel that way, however, all I can say is to blame that damn devil Athena. She's the one who put me in this position after all. Pleasant could no longer move his mouth to speak, but he could see, hear, and feel everything. I don't want you to worry that your sacrifice will be in vain, little fly, as I will weave a marvelous tapestry of your likeness and your beloved princess for my castle, and that way you'll always be remembered. Happily, ever after.